Jack expects peace and solitude when he embarks on a solo camping trip in the Appalachian Mountains. Instead, he discovers a nightmare. Strange noises, shadowy figures, and a sense of being watched followed him around all night. And when he awakens to find his campsite deserted and empty, he realizes he has been abducted by an unknown force. As he tries to find his way back to civilization, Jack realizes he is not alone in the woods. Something is watching and waiting for the next victim. And to survive the horrors that lurk in the Appalachian wilderness, Jack must rely on all of his strength and determination. As they fled, Jack couldn't help but wonder who these people were and how they knew where he was. He wanted to ask, but he knew it wasn't the right time. All he could do was hold on tight and hope to make it through the night. After what seemed like hours, the group came to a halt to catch their breath. They were now deep in the woods, far from the clearing and the creature that had nearly killed Jack. One of the people turned to Jack, a woman with short, spiky hair and piercing blue eyes. "We apologize for not being able to arrive sooner," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "We've been trying to figure out where that thing was coming from for weeks. What exactly is it?" Jack inquired, his voice trembling. "What exactly are those things?" The woman paused, as if unsure how much to tell him. "We don't know for sure," she finally admitted. "However, we believe they are the result of a failed experiment. They're fast and strong, and they seem to have an endless supply of victims." Jack's stomach sank. "Victims? How many people have they taken in total?" The woman's expression was solemn. "Too many," she exclaimed, "and there will be more unless we find a way to stop them." Jack's thoughts were racing. He needed to do something to assist, to prevent these monsters from taking any more lives. But what could he possibly do? He was a solitary figure with no weapons or training. The woman reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, as if reading his mind. "You're not alone, Jack," she said firmly. "We'll work together to figure this out, and we won't stop until all of those things are dead." Jack nodded, his resolve growing. He didn't have any special abilities or skills, but he wasn't going to let these creatures win. He would go to any length to keep them from hurting anyone else. The group took off again, their feet pounding the ground. They had a long journey ahead of them, but Jack knew they couldn't stop until they found a way to defeat the creatures stalking the Appalachian Mountains. Jack couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead as they ran. Will they be able to stop the creatures, or will they become their next victims? He didn't know, and the uncertainty was almost unbearable. But one thing was certain: Jack was not going down quietly. He was willing to go to any length to keep himself and the others safe. As the night progressed, Jack and the group persisted, their determination propelling them forward. They would not stop until the terror stalking the Appalachian Mountains was eradicated. But as they got closer to their destination, Jack had the uneasy feeling that they were being watched, and he was well aware that the danger was far from over. The group was attacked as if on cue. A swarm of creatures emerged from the darkness, their claws and teeth bared. Jack and the others fought back with all their might, but it was futile. The creatures were too numerous and too powerful. In the midst of the chaos, Jack lost sight of the others. He had no idea where they were or whether they were even alive. All he could do was fight for his life. Jack's heart was racing as he fought the creatures. He knew he couldn't keep this up indefinitely. He would eventually tire, and it would all be over. But just as he thought he couldn't take it any longer, the creatures began to flee. They screamed and dashed into the darkness, leaving Jack alone and panting in the clearing. He'd made it, but at what price? As Jack struggled to his feet, he realized he was the sole survivor. The others were gone, and no one knew what had happened to them. Jack began his search for the group with a heavy heart. He called out their names in the hope that they would respond. The only sound he heard was the wind rustling through the trees. As the sun rose, Jack realized he had to face the truth. He was by himself and had no idea how to return to civilization. But he would not give up. He'd made it this far, and he wasn't going to let the creatures win. He was determined to find a way out of the woods, no matter what it took. As he walked through the woods, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He kept turning, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was following him. But no matter how hard he looked, He couldn't find anything. He knew the creatures were still out there, waiting for their next opportunity to strike. And as he stumbled through the wilderness, Jack realized he needed to be prepared. He was the only one who could stop them, and he wouldn't let anyone else suffer the same fate as his friends. Jack pressed on, his feet pounding the ground as he searched for a way out of the woods. He knew he couldn't rest until he found a way to finally defeat the creatures. Jack's determination remained unwavering throughout the days. He searched every inch of the forest for a clue, a weapon, or anything else that could aid him in his quest. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched as he searched, but he refused to let his fear overcome him. He was determined to stop the creatures no matter what it took. After what seemed like an eternity, Jack's perseverance was rewarded. He came across an old, abandoned research facility deep in the woods. As he explored the facility, he realized it was the origin of the creatures. They were the result of a series of botched experiments carried out by scientists attempting to push the boundaries of what was possible. When the experiments failed, the creatures were left to roam the woods, preying on anyone who came into contact with them. With this newfound knowledge, Jack knew he had to take action. He couldn't let these creatures terrorize the mountains any longer. He needed to find a way to put an end to them once and for all. As he searched the facility, Jack discovered a way to exterminate the creatures. It wouldn't be easy, and he'd need all of his strength and cunning to pull it off. But he was willing to go to any length to save the people of the Appalachian Mountains. Jack set out with a renewed sense of purpose to put an end to the terror that had plagued the woods for far too long. As he faced the creatures, he realized he was the only one who could save the day. The battle was fierce, and Jack was afraid he wouldn't make it out alive. But he couldn't help but think of all the people he was fighting for as he fought. He couldn't let the creatures win, not with so much on the line.